Welcome to Tuesday Night Lives on the Dr. Boz channel. This thumbnail shows a picture of me 1 year ago this month. And it is a picture of me after 7+ years of weekly fasting. Not just a little bit of fasting. It is 48 to 72 hours of fasting, keeping my carbs low, teaching you guys and students how to do the ketogenic diet, and then being accountable to you. But despite that, this photo shows me 20 pounds heavier than I am right now. Over the course of the last year, those 20 pounds have come off, and I am here to say that that weight came off in not the healthiest way. Tonight, we're going to unpack some of those missteps in my life and how I've course corrected in the last 2 months, but also just some truth telling about looking at metrics that help me stay honest with you, honest with me, and continue to be what I hope to be, a leader in recovering from metabolic health and leading others out of this metabolic health. Stick around. You're going to want to see the last couple of slides about something amazing that happened in the last week. And I hope I get through this without a tear. So let's get back over to our live chat here. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for those of you that are here every week. I do have my numbers for fasting again this week. Ketones of 2.3 and glucose of 74. And I'm happy to share with you that this lecture for tonight, or this podcast for tonight, is going to go into some pretty personal metrics. So it's one of those places where if you're a woman, I'm 53 years old, I'll be 54 in a couple of months, and I'm going to show you some things that make me nervous. I'm going to tell you some stories that make me nervous, but this is what I think is the truth about really improving people's health. So lean in, let's teach you some of this stuff. We are going to share that tonight we do open the cart for our 21-day metabolic kick. It is something that if somebody would have told me when I left medical school and headed out in the world of being what I thought was going to be an intensivist, an ICU physician, that I would be leading a class that changes people's lives in 3 weeks, as much as I could do on one-on-one visits over the course of 4 years, meaning I would have to see you 4 years as a private patient to get the kind of changes that we get in this 21-day metabolic kick. And we open that cart tonight. You're going to hear a little bit more about that at the end of this lecture. Let's dive into this and see if I can do this with as much grace as possible. We're going to start here with that thumbnail one more time and get you squared away. Let's go back over to here and say yes. When I look at that picture of me, I know that I told myself I wasn't that bad. I was okay. And I still hold by that I wasn't that bad. I was okay. But when I look at what you should have seen, what I've used in the past to look at my health, I use a DEXA scan. So this DEXA scan, we're going to start back where the story was in 2022. This is a year into living here in Florida. And if you look at that photo, I'm actually on a mission trip with 2 of my kids there. We're in Honduras, and I feel pretty healthy. I think I've, doing okay on the ketogenic diet. I'm not feeling bad. I'm keeping up with my kids. I feel like I'm doing pretty good. When I did a DEXA scan that year, I had a body total fat of 31%. Again, not something that if you, go online and say what it should be, it should not be that high. But to me, that was pretty good. Other things that I just want you to take notice of, because we're going to compare them over the next several slides. And I just want you to see how vulnerable this is for a perimenopausal woman to say, yes, there were 43 pounds of fat on my body then. And this is going to be one of the best metrics I have over the next few years. So I have a rhythm in life and I'm doing pretty good. And a year later, I do another DEXA scan. And this is my sister. She and I have very similar, body shapes and body metabolism issues. And she's in town. And I tell myself when I do that second DEXA scan, that the difference between 33.3 and 33.8 is well, it must be the machine. That's not that big of a deal. It's practically the same. And when I look closer at the numbers there, that total body mass, I now weigh a little less than I did the previous year, so I feel pretty proud of myself. But if I'm looking close, I've lost some lean tissue. And the fat mass, well, that's practically the same, right? 43 pounds, okay. But what I want you to take notice of is something has changed here. This is an AG ratio, and that AG ratio actually teaches me, when I do this on patients, how difficult it is, especially around menopause, to make sure you're putting the fat on in the right places. This AG ratio stands for the android, which is supposed to be more a masculine term, and a gynoid, which is a more female term. And it says, yeah, well, it's your waistline versus your rump and hip line, meaning the thickest part of your body is the gynoid measurement. And what you want is that you want a number less than 1, meaning that the android weight and the gynoid rate, the android measurement and the gynoid measurements show a much smaller proportion on the android area, on the waistline, than it is the gynoid. And when you do a DEXA scan, it really does look closely at where you're putting fat. So it's actually not just measuring like what a tape measure would measure, it's looking at how much adipose you're putting around the middle versus around your hips. So the moment of big reveal. This is my number in 20. Let's see if I can get a better look. Let's go back to yellow. This is my number in 2023, I think. And I just want you to notice this purple right here. That is all fat. That is all fat. This is the one I had done last week. We're going to talk about that at the end of it. You can see, sure, there's still fat around my hips. I am a woman. But look at the difference of fat mass that I'm storing around my hips in one picture versus the next. We're going to break this down, and we're going to talk about what has happened, not just in the year where I lost the fat, but how did I course correct? If you happen to watch the show in May and you saw me break down into tears on this show live on a live, you'll know that this is a struggle that I've been trying to course correct. That in July of 2022, those were the numbers. In April of 2023, those are my numbers. And now we move to 2024. Now, this is a few months before this, but I was the same weight in this picture as I was in May of 2024. So that's 1 year ago now. I mean, I have pushed that. I can't even lie to myself that it should not be that. It should not be that. It should not be 35% of my body is fat. But it was. And my total body mass, I was now over 143. And I'm sure on my driver's license, it still said that I weighed 130 or maybe 128 pounds. But that's not what I weighed. I weighed over 140 by now, and 50 pounds of that body are fat. Yeah. Most importantly is that android-gynoid ratio is almost 1. That's not good. That is not good. I mean, this morning I was giving this lecture to the pin chasers, and one of the gentlemen there said, is that ratio still as important for men and for women? And I'm like, well, when a man puts on weight, they do have this tendency to put it on around their middle. That when that waistline has the belt that goes under the mass. In fact, he said, yeah, when I put my pants on, I kind of put it on under my gut. Until this last season of my life, where I don't have a gut to put it under, I've really lost that weight in the middle. And this guy is just faithful as ever, teaches me so much through his life, and then reflects on some of the things where, he's watching my life up close and personal every Tuesday morning as well. And I said, yeah, the belt that I would have worn a year ago, I had to put another hole in it. And I wouldn't have told myself a year ago that my waistline was that bad. But when you look at these metrics, what the weight I was putting on in my hips was much bigger than what was happening in my waistline. So a man is going to put that extra weight on in the android part, and a woman will quickly put that weight on around her rump and her thighs, enlarging that gynoid number. Both of those are sending the number north of 1 if you keep putting on the weight. And as you watch on a DEXA scan, the amount of fat that I was putting on around my gynoid area was pushing me to the numbers just like this. And as hard for that as that is for me to admit, I can't deny this is exactly what was happening. All right, so this part of what happened in those first three numbers. You know, when I look at patients who come to see me, these patients have stories behind their numbers. They have been to the doctor before. I'm not the first physician they see. They have cholesterol numbers and diabetes numbers and the metrics that we can measure their height, weight, blood pressure, and the analytics. But it's the stories behind those numbers that if I can't dive in and help them see clearly in the mirror, much like I'm trying to do right now in my life, live in front of all of you, if they can't see the backstory to what their baseline is doing, we're probably not going to raise that baseline. When I look at let's go to this one right here. When I look at what happened a year ago, starting in October, Hurricane Milton and Helene hit my house, and it threw a monkey wrench into my life. We had been 1 month into empty nesting. My husband and I had our 3 kids launched into college, and we were home with, 3 dogs at the time. We have since given one of the dogs away to the neighbors because we just couldn't handle it all. What we're about to experience is a change in our baseline. And this baseline is this glib little word that really summarizes the backstory behind the numbers that patients come in thinking I'm going to help them with their numbers, when it's this baseline stuff that really predicts how they're doing. This natural disaster could be a good thing. And I think there is a silver lining of what happened in this natural disaster. We'll talk about that as this show goes on. But the next layer is that it removed my kitchen. Again, that could turn me into fast food eating, or it could clean up a couple of habits. I halted all exercise. I mean, my exercise rhythm was a couple times a week before that, maybe 3 times a week if it was a good week. But it was gone. The stability of exercise was 0 from this point forward. I didn't know that. I thought I'd figure out a way to keep going, but we started hotel hopping because what do you do when they're repairing your house and you can't live in it? You think, oh, rent a house, but that's what everybody in the community tried to do. And what was happening in real time is I'm an optimistic kind of gal, but my baseline was changing. Our baseline for life had just had a monkey wrench thrown into it. And it's this backstory that has taught me so much about being a really good physician. When I look at the perception of what people think, if they look back over time, and I've shown this slide before, but I just love it because when people say, where did the weight come on? Oh, a couple pounds a week over time. But the truth about weight gain is it looks a lot like this. That there are seasons where the weight goes up, and that's when their baseline changed. And then they can hold still for a while. Maybe they even make it go down during some of those seasons, but then their baseline changes again. And this is what that natural disaster did to me. And despite me talking my way through and saying it's not a big deal, just keep going, it is a flaw of mine. I don't want to do that. I want to say, nope, I'm fine. And in many ways, I was fine. These are first world problems by far. But the first world problems were affecting me more than I gave credit to. When I look at the opposite of this, the perception of weight loss is not a couple pounds a week like Weight Watchers tells you it is. It is that they hit a change in life, a baseline changes, and then they hold it. And then a baseline will change again, and then they have to hold it. And then a baseline changes and they hold it. These are set points. And if you're trying to lose the weight for good, we have to help you with those. But we need to create the stress point during times you need to do it a little healthier than what I did. The baseline changing is the part we're going to focus on. And when I look at patients coming into my clinic, there's several things that I take inventory on. And part of that is these 7 steps. I look at their circadian rhythm, their mental health. And I mean that not by saying, do you have depression or anxiety, but really, do you take care of you? Are you on the list or are you at the bottom of the list? Do you, I love the Bible verse that somebody told me this morning was, love thy neighbor as thyself. And the key component to that scripture is, how well do you love yourself? Because if you're the bottom one on the list, that's the key to that. You can't love your neighbor more than you love yourself, but how well do you love yourself? And that's an honest question that I've failed at in past seasons. So the next one is purpose and faith. We'll talk about that in a second too. We then look at food and whether or not you use it for a way to sustain you, or do you use food to cope, to grieve, to entertain, to distract? We look at substances. We're going to look at my relationships and then my exercise. All of these are the metrics that change a baseline. So if you look at that side baseline, I'm just going to move this over here for a second because I think you can see it better. Hold tight. There we go. If you look at these metrics, you have a baseline that can be good, medium, or bad. So we're going to say at the beginning of that hurricane, this was my baseline. Okay, bad might be a little hard on myself, but it wasn't. There were some issues. I would say that my circadian sleep, I've been teaching sleep for years. I'm really good about a good bedtime. I don't have midnight exactly in the middle of the night like it should be, but bedtime is somewhere between 9 and 10 at least at this season. So I'd give myself a 7 out of 10 that I'm pulling upward on my baseline. My baseline was pretty solid when it comes to my circadian rhythm. The next thing would be my mental health. And again, a 6 out of 10 means I'm doing better than I used to. I've got me higher on the list. I got kids off to college at this set point, so I should be on the list. I have flaws, or I put too much hours in at the office, and I can turn this job into my drug. But I'm doing better. I'll say I'm doing better. And I'm committed that this first year of empty nesting is going to be this great year. My husband and I do what I've seen many couples, some do right, some not do right, which is put him first, put him first, put him first. And then a hurricane hits and it's not been perfect, but I'd still give myself a 6 out of 10. And that lifts things up. Now, faith and purpose, where that season of my life really got challenged, probably from the year 2015 to 2020. And by God, I know I'm doing what God called me to do. I really know that. I know that the purpose of what I'm supposed to do is teach people about medical health problems. And I can lean in that it doesn't always work out perfectly, but I enjoy it. And I just know that's where I belong. When I take care of patients and they're in that season of life where they know that they're doing what they're called to do. They're not fighting it. They're not saying, I didn't plan on this. I don't want to do this. I actually wanted to be an ICU doctor. I didn't want to be a YouTuber. But dang, is it working out that I am helping a lot of people. And when I do it, you can hopefully feel it. You can feel that the Holy Spirit is just channeling through me and teaching you about healthcare problems that I know my faith and my purpose are aligned. I'd give myself a 10 out of 10 on that. I'm sure there's always room for improvement, but for that one, I'd say, yeah, I'm in a good place. I then look at food. And this is the one I'm going to give myself a 4 out of 10, so that pulls my baseline down a little bit. But when I look at a 4 out of 10, that 4 out of 10 is because I do a way better job of not using food to cope with, not using food as a distraction, not using food as entertainment. And those are all things that I've had to work on since like 2015 when I really started saying, what am I doing with this? How do I do this better? And is it really addictive? Am I really using it as a drug like my patients with addiction use their substances? And I can say back in 2015, 16, and 17, yeah, it was my therapy. But I don't have that problem anymore. But what I did have is I still had I deserve this little, something. I would keep my carbs low. I would show up here every week and fast and show you my numbers. And those parts I did really well. But what I was doing in between was I might have no food during the day and then have supper too late at night because that's when I would eat with my husband. And during Hurricane Homeless, well, I didn't have a kitchen. So I had to make a choice point of, was I going to let it's actually an identity crisis for me, which you can call me a snob, whatever you want, that when I go to a fast food place, it bothers me. Like, that's not who I am. I grew up on a farm where fast food was a 30-minute drive away, and it was something you never did. You didn't, it was sinful. No, not really, but we're hog farmers, we're beef farmers. You don't go to McDonald's. You make a hamburger on the grill at the farm. You don't do this. And so there's just been this long-standing core identity that you don't do that. That my kids do it drives me crazy. But I wasn't, this hurricane homeless took away my kitchen, and I had a choice point that it was very easy to stay true to my identity, that I was not going to be that. I was going to say, you know what, I'm going to fix this problem of eating after I come home, after I leave my office. And for the most part, I stayed true to that. But we've got, food problems that I give myself a 4 out of 10, because I was still snacking at night before the hurricane. I was still doing the I deserve every once in a while. So even though when I was on point, I didn't screw up. And if I did fall off the wagon, I got right back on. I went to a support group every week. I led a support group every week for this. And I didn't stay, in the ditch of the problem very long. So again, a 4 out of 10. It's pulling me down a little bit for my baseline, but not a lot. The next one would be substances. And again, this is a place where I think I think I have a 7 out of 10. There's been seasons where when my sister lives closer, she lives in South Dakota still, and I live in Florida. And when I lived near her, I could go see my sister and we could have a glass of wine together, and that was great. And what I know now for sure is that when I did consume those substances it was a glass of wine, maybe 2 glasses of wine, and it was a Friday or Saturday night, and if I got to see my sister twice in a weekend, then it was 2 times a week. But my metabolism did not recover very well. Like, I would fast starting on Sunday, but it was terrible how long it took me to get back to a ketogenic state if I'd had wine on Friday or Saturday. And for a long time, it took me a while to admit that. As the hurricane had hit, well, my sister doesn't live very near me very well, doesn't live near me. So when she does come to town, it was like a couple times a year. And even though we'd have a glass of wine maybe while she was in town, it was different. It wasn't serving us well. So we both kind of leaned in that this isn't good for us, and we don't need to do this to feel good, to hang out together. And that was probably the one substance that did give me a little bit of trouble, but it was rare. It was not very often. And I really think I figured that out probably over the course of the last, probably 6 years, I suppose. I worked on that one. All right. So that raises me a little bit. Like, I don't have that much of a problem with that one. Relationships is one that when that hurricane hit, I'd give myself a 5. The friends I have made here in Florida, I love them. I will tell you, I leaned into some friends that were also moms of boys at my son's high school. So, volunteering for this, trying to be present for the boys it was an all boys school. So whenever they needed something, and I found kindred spirits. But I noticed that once he graduated, those friendships had really just been anchored in our acts of service. And when we weren't serving together, it was a lot harder to keep the friendship. And so I look around and I have some really great people I've met at the Pin Chasers. They're struggling with their metabolism right along with me. They come with curious questions. They help me when I'm teaching it wrong. They call me on that. And I call those friends. I think that's what relationships are all about. But if I would have stayed in South Dakota, the number of friends I had was abundant. And so to push reset at 50, move across the state, I give myself a 5 because the friends I have, I really enjoy. But I probably work too hard to be that good of a friend. And I mean that honestly. Like, I should be present for my friends more when they need it. And I work a little too hard to do that. That's me being honest. So relationships, I give myself a 5 when that hurricane hit. And again, it's still something I was trying to work on. But the exercise, yeah, that's a 2 out of 10. I was just not doing it. If I went for a walk and had one CrossFit workout in 2 weeks, I was doing pretty good. And that is my baseline in 2024. And I think it goes without saying that, yes, when patients come to see me, it is this baseline these 7 factors that I'm truly trying to wiggle around while looking at their numbers. Like, okay, yes, I can check your A1C and your cholesterol and what's your weight and what's your blood pressure. But really, if we're trying to get you healthy, these are the levers that we are trying to pull. And when life hits you with a curveball, like a hurricane, where this baseline started will determine how well you not only handle the natural disaster that's coming your way, but which direction are you going to move? So in 2024, all that stuff happened, and here's what went right. Here's what went wrong. My circadian rhythm probably went down to a 5 out of 10. I'm sleeping in a hotel most nights for several months. My mental health, I'm going to come back to that one. My faith and purpose stayed really strong. My food actually got better. This habit, let's see if I can erase that. Oh, go like this. My food probably got better, meaning I stopped snacking at night. I stopped the I deserve because there was no kitchen. Okay, so maybe the first reason I stopped it was because I had to. But I also think that it might have been linked to the mental health story. My substances, again, I might even be an 8 out of 10. I didn't find pleasure in it. I don't want to drink a glass of wine alone. I'm hotel hopping, so I can't even invite a friend over to my house. My sister can't visit me because she'd have to be in the hotel with us. I gave away the dog, one of the dogs, because I just can't handle 3 dogs in a hotel room when we have to switch hotel rooms every 3 to 4 days. And what was happening was, I wasn't drinking, but maybe part of that was because I just didn't want to feel any. I didn't want to relax. I didn't want to lean in and say, just stop thinking about work and all the stuff I think about. Relationships probably stayed at a 5 out of 10, meaning I didn't get a chance to work on them. The ones that were in my life stayed strong. My sister didn't get to visit very often. And exercise went to a 0 out of 10. I mean, it was just a 0 out of 10. So let's talk about this mental health part. You know, I did talk about this in late May, and if you want the gory details and some tears, which you can fast forward through, it was because I had recognized I'd lost the weight. And you're going to see a DEXA scan here in a minute, and then 1-2 months later, which was done last week, where anhedonia is a word that you use in medicine when you're trying to say the reason I wasn't doing well was because something I wasn't willing to admit out loud, that this was harder for me than I thought it was. And I will placate. I will just say, nope, I'm fine. And for the 9 months where I'm not eating after work, I'm not exercising. I mean, I'm going to church and I got my Bible study, but the friendships are not enriched because I'm not really present. I stopped having a glass of wine because I just don't feel like I'm in the mood for it. Like, that's something fun, and I wasn't doing any of that. That if I were coaching myself, I would say, you just stopped eating. You just had, the word anorexia isn't the right word, but I shouldn't say that on YouTube because they'll give me a cancel. So we'll cut that out. The word where you don't have a desire for food it's a clinical term where your brain just says, I just don't have any joy in eating. And that's where this next DEXA scan comes in. I go back and watch May of 2020, the May one, which is about 2 months ago from right now, which is when I did that DEXA scan, and it showed this. Okay, May of 2024, which is on the thumbnail at the beginning of the show. This is where I was. No, not at the thumbnail. This is where I was 2 months ago. And I will tell you for sure, I know that dress fits better than it did before. I know that this number, total body fat, down to 32%. Well, it's better, but it's not where I was in July of 2022. I'm not working out. I'm not hanging out with my friends. I'm not doing the joyful things. And I mean, it was funny because when I did this show live and broke down into tears, I'm sorry, my psychiatrist friend called and said, God, I had no idea that that's how you lost that weight, that you were clinically down. And so looking at this DEXA scan is when I realized, oh no, I lost the weight. And I did this fasting with low carb diet in a ketogenic state. But look at, and I lost 12 pounds of fat, but I also lost, I was the lowest lean mass I've had in years. And I get some bragging points for having a good bone mineral density, but I got this body weight that I've been deciding for many years should be the right weight because that's what I would have put on my driver's license. But the body percentage of an AG ratio of 9, I shouldn't have this. I shouldn't have had this much pounds of fat on. So I lean in and do a few things that, that a good husband helps you with. And one of my kids moved home for the summer and I got to lean into his life. And I added back exercise with my son. I also put in a better eating balance that I was not just, I just made it an effort to say, put in a can of sardines. I don't not like them. So the protein went up, the eating schedule got a little better. The other parts of my baseline I worked on. And here's the DEXA scan from last week. Maybe. There we go. Yeah, so last week I did a workout with a friend of mine. You'll see these videos coming out on his channel called Critical Bench. We worked out together while wearing continuous glucose monitors. And I'm going to have a show on that in a couple of weeks. Tune in to whose blood sugar did better and who do I think is metabolically stronger, the guy with 100-pound muscle mass or me. And then I did a bone density, another DEXA that week. So first of all, just give me a little praise that the percentage of body fat is in the 2s. We're in the 20s. And that's a big deal. But it also is really worth pointing out that when I put exercise back in, when I worked on several of those baselines that really brought joy into my life, my total body mass is down a couple of pounds. The fat mass is down a couple of pounds, but the lean body mass is up. And most importantly, that AG ratio, where I'm putting that fat, is in a much healthier place. And I think it goes without saying that when I look at helping patients, I don't think, just like they can't escape what those baselines are doing in the back of their lives, I can't leave mine on the curb either. It affects me. It affects how I counsel people. It affects how I teach folks. And when I look at the circadian rhythm of the first really big sprint that I started doing in 2015, I know that many of you are where I started in 2015. When my mom's health issue hit, and if you haven't read the book Any Way You Can, it is a great book that has sold over 1 million copies. Her story has helped over 1 million people. Probably the most proud thing I have done in my life is tell her story in a way that helps so many people. And I was pretty snarky about this ketogenic diet, but I was doing it for my mom. And if I go back to 2015 and say, well, how was my circadian rhythm? Oh my gosh, it was terrible. Yes, I go to bed at 10 or 10:30 maybe, but I had 3 kids and I had a full-time practice where I'm the only one on call, so I wasn't sleeping as well. And I would get up early and stay up late and burn both ends of that candle. And when it came to mental health, I was the last person on the list. I never put myself first. I put my patients first. I put my husband first. I put my kids first. I put anybody but me first. And, love your neighbor as yourself. Good Lord, it sucks to be my neighbor because I couldn't find me on that list. That when my mom's health got bad, she became number 1. And was totally in line with where my baseline was in life. My faith and purpose, not terrible, but nothing like what it is today. Food, my sister lived near me. So whenever I could say, well, let's get together and eat, let's get together and find a recipe, I did what everybody else in this audience has done. And that is, food was way higher on the entertainment, distraction, boredom than it was on, is food sustaining me? When it came to substances, I guess maybe that was, my sister lived in town, so there would, somebody else to have the glass of wine with. And it's not every night, but boy, at least 5 days a month. And my relationships were pretty good, but my exercise, well, it was pretty terrible. Like, again, not doing much. So when I compare my baseline from what happened when a hurricane hit me in 2024, and looking at where this baseline was then, and knowing that in the weight loss and what it did to my mental health and to, some of my, it didn't do any favors for my exercise. But in the final 2 months of this this journey that I'm on, my exercise has gone up, my mental health has gone up. My again, if I've had a glass of wine in the last 2 months, maybe 3 times in 2 months. Food is, I do not use it to cope for. I do not use it as this place of, I deserve. And my relationships still continue to be pretty good. But it's the baselines that when I work on these with patients, with my coaches, with my team, I know that if I was coaching myself a year ago, I would have told myself that you needed to lose weight. You have a problem here. But I wasn't coaching myself. I was lying to myself. A natural disaster happened and my baseline was pretty good. Forced me to address some things that luckily helped me lose weight, but at a cost that wasn't lifting my whole baseline. And it wasn't until, probably when I told you guys the truth here on the show in May, that I looked in the mirror and said, oh, if you were my patient, I would tell you to work on these things. And I share this with you because I genuinely invite you to my favorite thing that I do every year. Twice a year, I lead this course on the 21 day. It is 21 days of live interaction in small groups where we work on these 7 baselines. That yes, we're going to have you prick your finger and you're going to show your teammates your glucose and your ketones every morning. It'll be on a dashboard where we'll use positive peer pressure to say, you can do a little better. We'll help you do a little better. And we will zing your metabolism into a new gear. We will give you this sprint that is how you change metabolism. It is how you move the needle in life. And you will leave there with a community that's been trained by us, that is free for you. You will own that group as a group, and you will have the tools to not only lean in and see how I use my faith, my commitment to being a good citizen of Tampa, but a good mother and a good wife, and try to be a great doctor. Because it is the gift God gave me. And the best place that I teach it is in this class, the 21 day. We're opening the cart today. We only take 200 students. And the little secret link that we've sent out the last 2 videos, that's closed. But we had really good sales from that video. So if you want to take this course, it starts the week after Labor Day. We do the same week every year. The week after Labor Day is when it starts, and it's 3 weeks, Monday through Friday, that we are asking you to lean in and really commit to improving your metabolism while working on these other things. And we do address them. And then we do it again after the holiday in January. So twice a year, we do these 3-week sprints. And the baselines that I've seen raised from the students that have done it, some of them have taken the course multiple times. I give the course multiple times. And I contend that the reason my baseline was so good when that hurricane hit is because I lead that course twice a year. I sprint twice a year on my own metabolism, on looking at my own 7 characteristics or 7 values that change where my baseline is. Lots of you write in and ask to be my patient. And I will tell you, you can't be my patient without taking this course. This course is the best teaching we do. And we lift metabolisms all across the world. It is not a cheap price, but it is a price where we think that, one of my markers is that I know if my mother were alive, she could afford it, she could follow it, and it would help her, even from rural South Dakota. All right, let's go to our website really quick. I want to show you where to click on a couple things. And in the meantime, I see several folks are clicking on or writing in some good questions. So I just want to make sure that you see how this works. Under our shop and courses, we have our courses here. The 21-day metabolic kick is open. This video gives you a little lesson on what it's all about. I love showing people this infographic here on what happens. The first day is a Sunday. There's some core lectures that you'll always have access to those core lectures, but the real juice is at 8:30 Eastern time. I live stream. I do teaching during the first week. We do some really important things about just getting everybody on the same page. And by Wednesday, we have you hooked up to a dashboard where you can see everybody in your classroom who has, and what their blood sugars are, what their ketones are. You'll find a time throughout, there'll be a support group. It says coach group, which is a support meeting. And it's a group of 10. We have 20 coaches that I think are some of the best people in the world. They don't have big alphabet letters after their name, meaning they don't have a bunch of degrees. They are men and women who have used the ketogenic diet, and they love to teach. They love to be in community. They love to galvanize these students into doing something brave enough to improve their metabolism. And this class is amazing because of them. But you'll pick a time that you say, I can meet live Monday through Friday for these 3 weeks with that group of 10. If you can't meet us at 8:30, if you're on the Pacific Coast and that's like, 5:30 in the morning for you, we give you a link and you can watch the replay, because you'll want especially to dial in on the weeks days 9 through 13 and 16 through 20, because that's when I do these cases. So you can see here it says case 1, case 2, case 1, case 2, case 3. These are cases from the group. These are students who have questions and they have metabolic issues, and we use their live interaction with me to teach what would I do if that was my patient. The education is incredible. It's like being on rounds as a med student, and you get to see what I would do with the ketogenic diet while you work on your own metabolism. Again, it's the best thing I do all year. If you're looking for my favorite product and my favorite time of years to say I honor what I do great, which is teach, that's where you'll find us. All right, we hope you click on the link. I'm going to get over to the questions here. One more click there. Let me push refresh here. There we go. Betty writes in and says, are there any health issues that would be harmful to have while participating in the 21 day? You know, we've had some unbelievable folks join us. We've had folks with cancer. We've had folks who, when people write in with cancer, the thing I tell them is you shouldn't take the 21 day. You should have your family, someone you love, take the 21 day. When they can lead and you can be the follow during a time where you're fighting for your life, that to me is the best answer. But when I look at, I'm an internal medicine physician, and although the class is not doing your medical care, I can't look away. I don't want to hurt anyone. And when I watched type 1 diabetics, I've had, folks, that substance thing where I say, how you doing on that? I have some incredible stories where a diabetic who just didn't think he could live without beer. And for 3 days, he stops drinking his, 3 or 4 beers a night. And he can't believe that his blood sugars go from over 200 in the morning down to 120, which isn't perfect, but is so much better. When I look at the places I've been nervous about, it's somebody who's a heavy drinker. And then we're asking them to do things that their doctor should have asked them to do, but they didn't. So when I say, is there any health issues that would be harmful? No, and we watch for that. We try to be as mindful of that as we can when the relationships are, remote or new. If you happen to take the 21 day, I know there's places you've left reviews, but if you even write 1 or 2 sentences about it, it's really encouraging for me to read it. So that's selfishly what I would love to see. But for anybody who's considering taking it and they see comments of folks that have taken it, real live humans that have taken this leap and done that, I would love the help. And I'm going to brag about this. And sometimes it sounds like a sales pitch, which I suppose you could say I am trying to sell the tickets, but it is so much more than that. And when students tell us how they've done, it changes the tone. Tom H says, what are the prerequisites for the 21-day classes? I love it when people know what a ketone is. There's a reason why on my lives I sent out the secret link the last couple of weeks, because I think when folks are leaning in trying to figure it out, that's the people we love seeing in class. There are no prerequisites. You can show up saying, I don't know what a ketone is. When we accept you into it, we send you a list of things that are really helpful to have on hand. And one of them is a meter. If you're buying a meter the first day of class, it's really hard to synchronize and participate with your classmates. So we send you a list of things that you should have. But I'll tell you, most people watching this, if they haven't bought a meter, you should. You can't be on the ketogenic diet if you don't follow ketones. So there really are no prerequisites. We've had folks take it multiple times because they want their baseline higher. They want to work on the next little thing. And I think one of the biggest testimonials is to ask the coaches some of them have coached with me now 7 times, and their health is so much better. So yeah, I don't think there are any prerequisites. Under what circumstances should I take your ketones? Only while fasting, or only when my glucose reading is less than something? So this is a great question. So the best reason to take ketones is, I'll tell you when I take them. Let's start with that. So you've heard me say when I'm fasting on Mondays, if I'm getting crabby and I have work to do, I need my brain to stay with me and not go off into the rawr stage. I'll have ketones during my fast. I usually do pucker up because there's nothing else in it. But I used to do the raspberry BHB. If you have a can of raspberry BHB and it's hard, please do not send it back. It is safe. Just crush it up. The heat did that. I'm so sorry, but please don't send it back. I did raspberry BHB for probably 5 years. And it was something I would put in the afternoons. Whenever I would screw up and have too many carbs. And as an insulin resistant woman, when I have too many carbs, I make high amounts of insulin. So what does that do? That pushes my blood sugar down. I get a little hypoglycemic. I get crabby. I get a craving. And then I do this thing up and down. And so to get out of the up and down after I screw up, just drink ketones for a couple of days. Not only, but 2 to 3 doses a day will completely stop me from doing that. And it takes away my cravings. It takes away my patients' cravings. Other places that I look that ketones are completely underutilized is when brains aren't working right. Whether that's a concussion, whether that's a Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, if you can raise the ketones in your blood, great. But most of these folks are struggling to get 0.5 ketones every morning. So to supplement the ketones is a masterful way to just hack their way to better brain performance and then behave their way to better ketone performance. Meaning when you ask them to do all of it at once and their brain is partially offline, and I mean that in a way that the glucose fuel, the supply of glucose is volatile because of their insulin resistance. It's going up, the insulin shoots up, that pushes the glucose down. Then they take a bite of something, and then the glucose goes up, and then the insulin goes up, and then the glucose goes down. And that cycle is just how they stay craving and munching and eating every couple of hours. And when they're trying to get away from that, steady ketone supply in the circulation tells the liver to make ketones. And it is the best way to abort that spiraling the drain of a metabolism. So fasting, it's just a great way for me to get through a crabbiness on Mondays. When I've been working out, it's amazing actually. When I've done this last 2 months where my son and I worked out most mornings, almost 5 days a week for 2.5 months now, I can't believe how much easier fasting is, because I wake up, I do a workout, and then my body's making more ketones the rest of the day. And so people think, oh, how can you work out fasted? I'm like, it's actually easier for me. My ketones go higher, and I don't have that Monday afternoon slump as bad. Before, I would have to schedule, just put the ketones in before I get crabby at my staff. So good question. I hope I answered that. Next one is Christmas MC. You've written before. I recognize that name. I keep thinking I should do the metabolic kick, but I'm afraid I will let Dr. Boz down. Oh, there's no such thing. It is amazing. Oh, first of all, that just shows you trust me and you respect me. So thank you for that. But I will tell you, I look back. I showed you the baseline for where I am right now. And I almost didn't show you where I was in 2015. I almost didn't get the slides done to say, well, look where I've come from. Look what I did in 2015. And I've got all the medical degrees and the authority to be able to teach this. And I've messed it up a lot. That the coaches that we add on to our team, first of all, every coach that's been here has had to take the class. So they were a student once too. But who makes it as a coach on our team? They're people who've messed it up. They did not arrive at their journey. They are struggling. And we know that when you're in community, when you're in relation, that the disappointment would never be me watching you try and fail. It's never trying. And I think every one of my coaches would feel the same way. They're on this team because they love helping people get better. We hire for attitude. We do not hire for degree. And if they've struggled and had to figure it out, it makes them a better coach. And that's what you're talking about, that if you struggle and it goes wrong, don't worry, you're in good company. We've all done that. The courage to do it is, it really is on my criteria of how do I think about this course. And I've had people say, you should charge more, you should charge more. And I'm like, I just don't know that Grandma Rose could have afforded it if I charged more. And I really want to honor that. She may be in heaven and her story may be read in the books of Any Way You Can. But my acts of service are to you in honor of her. That's true. David writes in and says, how often should a DEXA scan be done? Oh, ideally. This past year when I have leaned in, as many of you know, the last class, I did something that I didn't plan on. I planned it probably 3 weeks before the class started, and that was to offer a prescription for the GLP-1s to anybody that completed the class, meaning they showed up and they tried and they really worked on their metabolism. If they did that and their metabolism was still struggling and they wanted to try a GLP-1, we wrote one prescription that lasted them 12 weeks. And it was the last time you could write a prescription under the compounding pharmacies. So we knew they could get the whole prescription for $200. So it was cost effective. And I wanted to study how well people did on a ketogenic diet with adding a GLP-1. And I don't mean that I'm going to put in air quotes, they're on a keto diet. I meant they are making ketones every morning. They're in a strong ketogenic state. And now you add this tiny little dose of a GLP-1, what happens? And I wish I would have done DEXAs at the beginning and DEXAs at the end. There's a whole bunch of things I would do differently now, like how we would follow them, what we would do. We learned a lot. And we have a new team of folks that will be leading that class. Again, we'll only offer that GLP-1 prescription for the folks who complete the program and that want to do it. Not everybody needs a GLP-1, but there are some people that have been struggling with metabolism issues for the better part of a half century. They're 4 or 5 decades into this metabolic problem. So they don't have enough trips around the sun to do this I'm going to put this in quote, natural way. They need to be in ketosis, and watching the preferential fat loss when a GLP-1 is added to an advanced ketogenic state is fascinating. It is fascinating. So when people say, how often should I be doing a DEXA scan? I would say that if you're on a ketogenic diet and you're using a GLP-1, I would do it 4 times a year. If you're on a ketogenic diet and just trying to say, where are you at? As you can see by the numbers tonight, I think it keeps you accountable. I think it keeps you from getting derailed by saying, I'm good enough. I've improved so much. Just like me, if I go back and look, I knew 35% body fat was not good, but I wasn't changing anything. There was no sprint involved. I was doing a lot of things right, but it took this last year of some not so healthy ways of losing weight, and then leaning in to say, take good care of you. Me saying that to myself, take good care of you. So yeah, that at least annually when you're on a ketogenic diet, I think you're going to be, I mean, you can get them without a doctor's prescription. I mean, all of those DEXA scans, I didn't order. I can't order something on myself, but I went to the local place and got a DEXA scan. I went to KetoCon, now called Hack Your Health, and there's always a DEXA scan there, and that's how I did it every year, right on the year. Like, that's right there. That this year it's in Tampa. Christina says, is there a lot of radiation on a DEXA scan? Is the DEXA the same as checking for osteoporosis? Oh, I am so glad you asked this, because I'm going to brag about one thing that I took off the slide deck, and I'll put here to say it is not exactly the same as it is radiation. Yes, there is radiation involved. It is less radiation than you would have on an airplane. It's like, I think I saw somebody fact checked me on this, but I think it was 1/4 the amount on a mammogram, meaning it's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of radiation to get that X-ray, but it is far superior to the ones where you have the impedance barometers in your hands. So I'm going to show you the one thing that I was like, gosh, after I show everybody how fat I am. Let me do this here. Move slides. Okay, so this is my bone mineral density, and this is something called the Z-score. So it does give you your bone mineral density. It's an X-ray saying it can measure how much water or fat is present in your body. It tries to decide which part is water weight, which part is fat weight, and then which part is bone weight, and then which part is muscle weight. So it is looking at all those components. And so you look at a Z-score, which helps you look at what is the cumulative percentage of the people your age that have that have your number. So the 50% mark would be a Z-score of 0. What most DEXA scores say, you want to try to keep it, if you can get a Z-score of 2 or greater, you're doing pretty good, but at least get it to a 1. And that is 84% better than what anybody your age has. So originally when I did this lecture, I put this right after showing you how much body fat I had, and then saying, guess what? My bone density is really good. I am in the 99.9th percentile for women my age, having a really good bone density for multiple checks on that. So Christina, the question you're asking is there a lot of radiation in DEXA? No. Is it the same as checking for osteo? It is, but and in fact, I tried to talk with the local radiologist here to say, could we get a true DEXA scan with the percentages of body fat, body water, muscle mass, and bone mass? And I know it can be done, but I tried like 4 ways to get a radiologist to order that with me here locally in Tampa, and I have failed miserably. So using the one that's in the gym next to where I work out is where I found it, actually. So they are the same. It's an algorithm that's being used. And it's one of those stories in medicine that it should be a lot easier to get this, to lean in and get a huge collaboration with physicians saying, these DEXA scans are really important. They're not that expensive. They don't take a lot of radiation. They don't take a lot of staff. But getting the medical team to do that is almost impossible. It's like, forget it. I'll just go to the industry in the marketplace. One final announcement. My assistant just sent me a text just to say, if you want beef liver, we are having a huge sale for that. These expire at the end of February. If I could do targeted marketing to folks, I would say any mother with a teenage girl who's had menstruations, getting iron up is not good for brain development. Having low iron is not good for brain development. If I had a teenage girl, she would either eat liver or take liver pills to prevent that anemia. So if you've got those around, you'll never find it cheaper than what we're selling it on our website. We have a few dozen bottles left. go in and help yourself to the best price and keep the girls away from getting anemia. All right, we will sign off, and I look forward to seeing any of you in the class that join. See you next week, guys.